Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Each and every cycle we've seen diminishing returns, but what happens if given a true institutional phase where all of the institutional banks and corporations and all of their clients pile in at the exact same time, given an ETF, given true government regulation and crypto being able to be adopted on a mass scale, given a true retail wave like we've never seen before, could that actually end that overall trend and see crypto valuations boosted on a scale that we've probably never thought possible? I'm going to be breaking it down today, explaining exactly how much money can be coming into these markets if given a true institutional adoption cycle. I think that this could really be happening and be what's upon us over this next bull run, and now could truly be the biggest opportunity that we're ever going to be getting as crypto investors. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. So to start off today's video, we're going to be talking about this tweet from Bob Lucas that I think speaks volumes to what I've been talking about. Now, when we compare the total ROI made from each cycle, we see diminishing returns. And we expect to see that as an asset class becomes more liquid, as there's more money involved, and there's less volatility overall. Recently, I've been talking about why I believe that we could see this next cycle, if given a true retail adoption, if given true institutional adoption, why it could actually be much bigger than any of the prior ones before us. I still believe that, and this tweet made by Bob Lucas perfectly explains what I've been talking about. What if the diminishing returns cycle over cycle narrative for Bitcoin is way overthought? I think about the what if, when you have crypto natives, retail, TradeFi, and their wealth clients all in together during a final blow-off phase. And that's exactly what I've been talking about. We've never seen true institutional adoption in crypto. We've never seen a true retail cycle where, kind of similar how we saw the internet bubble back in the mid to late 90s, we can look at the charts and we can see how so many of those internet stock companies ended up performing. And we always have seen these sort of cycles over history. So going into crypto, we've always known as investors that there would be a point where crypto goes mainstream, where it sees true institutional adoption. And so when we're talking about that, let's come over here and actually speculate a little bit about the valuations of these things. Let's assume that we really could see this cycle being much bigger and much more significant than years past, where this really is the true, internet bubble, I guess you could say, of crypto. In my opinion, if we're about to see all of the institutional banks and corporations, all of their clients, all of retail pile into one cycle, we've never seen that. And I've been here since 2016. I can speak based off the prior cycles. They've been nothing like that. And our last cycle was actually pretty lackluster, which has given everybody, the expectation that we're going to see another diminishing cycle. But what if we end up breaking that narrative and actually making a cycle that's much bigger than many people thought and expected? Let's talk a little bit about the valuations. If we come over here to CoinMarketCap, we can come to historical snapshots and we can actually see the valuations that these cryptos hold long term at any point in history. So if we come all the way over here, let's look at the first cycle top that we ever had, and that's going to be over here. Let's look at January 5th, 2014. We're going to see Bitcoin, it just started falling from like $1,100 when it peaked back then. So what we see with the total market cap hack here, we see Bitcoin at 11 billion. We see everything else in the hundreds of millions. These are the tens of millions, all the way down to 14. Then we see the millions, all the way down until 34. So that's how small the market cap was all the way back down in that first cycle. I think January of 2018 was the true cycle top. Yeah, so pretty close. Bitcoin had already sold off, but that was when altcoins made up their all-time highs and went into new all-time highs. So we see Bitcoin at 16K, and we're seeing that going from 11 billion in total market cap to 276 billion. And that's just cycle over cycle. 2017 was a much bigger cycle in comparison because that was really where altcoins came onto scene. A lot more volume than ever seen before. But then we're looking at XRP being number 2 at 130 billion, ETH at 111 billion. So when we're talking about the last cycle, there was only a couple altcoins that even had $1 billion in total market cap. And so looking at this, they 100x'd in value from that point. So we're seeing a lot more adoption. There was at least $1 billion in total market cap until all the way down at 43 ranking on total market cap. That's pretty crazy to think about. And that's 2017. If we come and look at the last cycle, which was actually pretty lackluster in comparison to 2017, let's look at November 28th. We're going to be looking at $1 trillion for Bitcoin, 500 billion for Ethereum, Binance Coin at 100 billion. Let's see, billions. Wow. we have at least a billion all the way down to 107. So we made a much bigger cycle. I mean, ROI was obviously diminished, but it was a much bigger adoption cycle as far as Bitcoin adoption. Bitcoin had a much stronger cycle in that last one. Even though altcoins had their own sort of run, it really wasn't as big as prior cycles. It was really focused in a few narratives and niches, and those were the main ones that performed well. So guys, enough of this. Let's talk about what happens in this cycle if given a true adoption cycle, one that we haven't seen before. So when we're charting this to compare, Bitcoin's market cap peaked at $1.3 trillion. That's what we saw at our cycle top. We bottomed at $305 billion. So almost an 80% correction. And so assuming, we could see this cycle being the one where it's real adoption on a massive scale we've never seen before, what if this thing went to, say $5 trillion, what would the price be at $5 trillion per Bitcoin? That would basically be putting Bitcoin at $250,000. But what if we could see something even crazier than that? It's hard to imagine it as we're at the low point of this cycle, as we're not so much the low point is, but as we're at the beginning of this new bull run. It's hard for people to be able to imagine that, especially with our last bull run being smaller in comparison. But we had a pandemic in the last cycle. We had a lot going against us. We didn't have real institutional adoption by any means. There was a little bit of involvement like we hadn't seen in maybe 2017, but that was just because there was now enough money involved with crypto that, they could actually play around with it a little bit. But now we're going into a cycle where there's true institutional involvement. There's on-ramps to be able for them to use the markets, and in my opinion, this is really the one we're going to see where we have them all pile in at the same time. But these assets are scarce. There's not very many of them. We could see them get gobbled up very quickly, and then given retail pushing at these, through emotions, guys, we see the valuations of these things get blown out of proportion all the time. And I think given a true adoption cycle like we haven't seen, it's going to do the same thing on a massive scale. So assuming that's going to happen here, what if we got adoption all the way up to the 10 trillion mark? That would basically put Bitcoin, it closer to the $500,000 per Bitcoin range. And I think that would be one where we see a much bigger sort of phase than anybody expected, because if Bitcoin itself is sitting at $10 trillion in market cap, if we're looking at the valuations of these things at the last cycle, Bitcoin pulls a 10x from its all-time high in value. ETH could probably be looking at relatively the same thing. Total market cap of ETH being 5 trillion. And then some of these other ones maybe even being in the $1 trillion mark. Probably only one other one in the same way that we've only seen maybe top 3 in total market cap holding those type of numbers. But then the rest of these you guys got to understand are going to be in the hundreds of billions in total market cap. And then once they're out of the hundreds of billions, there's still going to be so many of these things even in the tens of billions to the single billion range. On the single billion range, I would imagine that thing stretches far into the total market cap. So 107 being what we saw in the last cycle, you got to imagine that given a true institutional phase, we could double that. We could maybe even triple that if things got absolutely massive, which I think they could. And so we got to understand that if that is what's going to happen, there's going to be money flooding into these markets that we just haven't seen before. And that's what I'm saying, that if you're early to these things, if you're positioned properly, you're in good investments to hold long term, I don't think that you're really going to be able to go wrong, and you're going to set yourself up to make a lot of money in the process. So now I want to actually break down a couple coins. When I think about what can see a lot of adoption, what's a good altcoin to hold long term that's going to continue to see adoption long term and could actually benefit through that more than maybe your average crypto, there's one that I specifically think about and a narrative specifically that I want to break down. So let's jump right into it. Now, one of the cryptos that did well last cycle that caught some people off guard was actually Binance Coin. And Binance Coin, in my opinion, is a good example of how even right now, when we're looking at cryptos being valued to where, a lot of them are in the hundreds of millions mark. And so some people are thinking, man, I'm not going to ever make 100x anymore. That's not possible for us. The market caps are just too high in these things. I would not think that at all, because the last cycle, given even a pandemic, Binance Coin did 100x given the bottom of its cycle. Because you got to remember here with Binance Coin, the bottom of that 2018 bear market was right here. Then Bitcoin went to 14K. When Bitcoin went to 14K, Binance Coin made a brand new all-time high. It was pretty much the only coin to actually do that. And so when we're looking at this, it outperformed the majority of the market. Even though it had this correction, what we ended up seeing here for Binance Coin was one of my favorite chart patterns inside of the market. And what it is it's stacking one waves, right? So you have wave 1, wave 2, and then when you're getting ready for a big picture wave 3, and remember, wave 3s are generally the biggest, which, I mean, if you compare what happened shortly after to Binance Coin, we can obviously tell that that was the case. So when we're comparing these, this is what we would expect. Inside of wave 3, it should be the biggest. And that's exactly what we saw. But what we saw before that wave 3 set in, we ended up seeing stacking one waves. And I talk a lot about this, where we see wave 1 and wave 2, and then we have subwaves of wave 3 coming in. This is subwave 1 of 3, right? And then we have wave 3, that's this one here, wave 4, and then we have wave 5 of 3. And this completes our entire wave 3 impulse. And now we still haven't even completed our wave 5 impulse. So Binance Coin, in my opinion, still has plenty more upside to come in this next cycle. But the reason I'm talking about this is because Binance Coin from market cap, it went from $2.2 billion right here, and it still pulled a 35x in price. And that thing had, you know, a couple $1 billion in it in market cap. So you could buy quite a few different coins at a couple $1 billion in market cap. And I'm pretty confident a few of those are going to pull that type of gains. And many of them are going to do even more than that. Given this cycle that's going to see much more adoption, in my opinion, I think we'll see that type of stuff happen. And this one did even more than that. It did a 43x. Had you have bought at $16. And that wasn't even at the bottom of the cycle. That wasn't even at the bottom of the bear market. Had you have bought at the bottom of the bear market and held all the way to the top, you would have had 150x. So that just goes to show you guys how undervalued some of these things are going to be. And the reason why I think Binance Coin did so well is because you guys got to keep in mind that what are most people doing in crypto? They're trading. Where are they going to trade on? Exchanges. So obviously we would expect the exchange tokens that have good tokenomics to benefit well from overall exchange volume going up in the process. And one of the things that I think is going to be more profitable in this next cycle than many people are expecting are going to be decentralized exchanges. And the decentralized exchanges that have their own tokens. Because if we see true institutional adoption, we could expect that the valuations of these tokens can actually get overblown significantly. My favorite pick going into this next cycle when it comes to decentralized exchange tokens is GMX. In my opinion, it's just kind of one of the safer bets in the market. It's sitting around that $500 million mark, so I still think it has a lot more upside. And this is pretty much the same market cap that Binance Coin was sitting at, given the bottom of its bear market, or relatively close to. And so when we're talking about these two, in my opinion, they're very similar, and I talk a lot about this because of the stacking one waves. So remember, when we're talking about Binance Coin, remember how we ended up seeing both of these one waves. We had wave 1 and wave 2, but then we also had wave 1 and wave 2, but this was the subwaves of this much bigger impulse here. When we have this setup, the reason why I like it so much and the reason why I like to invest into setups like this is because of the fact it shows that there's a wave 3 impulse coming. And wave 3s are oftentimes the biggest. The most volume comes into those. The biggest ROI happens in that wave. And that's why I like to buy them, is because this is the beginning of the cycle. This is the small little uptrends. And what if we're imagining Bitcoin doing something like this, right? Having a much bigger cycle than people expect. All of that could be happening, because these are just the small parabolic cycles in between. But there always could be that one cycle that is much bigger than people expect. And I'm not necessarily trying to compare Bitcoin to Binance Coin or anything like that. The point that I'm trying to make here is the fact that with this stacking one waves, we see the exact same setup in GMX. And when we're talking about GMX, it has the entire Arbitrum narrative going behind it. It's currently the biggest crypto on Arbitrum besides Arbitrum token itself. And with this one being a futures exchange, you can literally go and trade leverage on any altcoin that they have on their exchange. And so I think that that's going to be a big proving point because of the fact there's going to be volumes coming into these markets. There's going to be a lot of people piling into different altcoins, a lot of people trading, and a lot of whales trading, most importantly. And with that happening, everybody benefits by holding GMX. Now, when there's so much different trading volumes that are going through the markets during the high periods, you guys got to understand that these are going to be insanely profitable. And that's why I believe that these are going to do well long-term inside of this cycle. Now, one of the big things I like about it is the stacking one waves, obviously, because we have two of these right here. We have wave 1 and wave 2, and then we have wave 1 and wave 2 again. But this is getting ready for a much bigger impulse to come. And so, even though it's sitting at $500 million in market cap, I think a lot of people aren't expecting for it doing a 50 to 100x, but I genuinely think that this one can, because of these exchange tokens being able to gather up a lot of volume that distributes rewards back to the token holders themselves, or the liquidity providers, however you do it on their exchange. exchange, I think that these are going to provide a lot of upside because a lot of people are going to be flocking to that. They're going to see that as an attractive investment. Seeing that they're actually able to earn all of this interest off of their money, when cryptos are blowing up in price, there's a lot of people that are going to be wanting to do that. And so a lot of these are pretty scarce assets. There's not a huge supply of these tokens. And I think that big picture, when we get a true sort of retail adoption, when we get institutional adoption, the amount of price that these things can go up by just because there's scarce assets and we can have all types of people rushing at the exact same time to buy them. It's a lot like the NFT market. A lot of those had a supply of like 10,000, and what we saw when everybody flocked to buy them at the exact same time was the valuations of those things going absolutely absurd, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. So when we're talking in terms of cryptos and having institutional adoption, we're going to end up seeing the same type of thing where everybody rushes to buy at the exact same time. There's not enough supply to provide everybody, and then everybody holds to a point where the market just goes crazier and crazier and crazier. It happens all the time in history. We've seen it happen repeat, but we've never seen anything quite to the extent of cryptocurrencies. And I think that decentralized exchanges being at the focal point of where we would expect everybody to be trading, everybody's going to be wanting to trade these things, but everybody's going to be wanting to trade them in a decentralized way. And I think that this is the reason why we're going to end up seeing that type of adoption ultimately propel crypto in ways that most people aren't expecting. GMX is one of my top picks. Check it out. With that being said, guys, if you found value in this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys want to see what I'm investing in long term, if you guys want to see anything that I'm doing with my money, whether it's NFTs, whether it's different cryptocurrencies, at any time I'm selling anything, or even getting out of the crypto markets and jumping into stocks, commodities like that, there's going to be a lot of opportunities long term. And so if you guys just want to be able to follow along with how I'm positioning myself during those movements, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access. It's going to grant you access to my private Discord server, and then you're going to be able to see all of my different picks from there. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for the support of this channel. It means the world to me. I've been feeling a little bit sick lately. You could probably tell by my stuffy nose, but I want to keep providing these videos because I still think that long term, where we're at is perfect for this institutional phase that we could end up seeing in this next cycle. We obviously don't know for sure, but I think that now could be the time ever before just because of where crypto is positioned. We haven't really had the on-ramps like we've seen at this point, and because of that, now everything's really going decentralized. DEX is being at the forefront of that. You know, this is going to be one of my picks moving forward that I think could see a lot of upside potential long term. So check them out. And with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.